For 22 years, Justine kept a secret about Elon Musk that could have destroyed him. Not about his companies. Not about money or fame. Something deeper. Something that explained why their marriage really ended. Something she protected even when he hurt her most. Now, in September 2024, an envelope arrives with no return address. Inside, a photo rack from their wedding day and a question in handwriting she'd recognize anywhere. Why did you keep my secret all these years? To answer that question, she has to go back to the beginning. Back to 1992, when she was just a purple-haired girl named Jennifer at Queen's University in Canada. Back to the moment she met an awkward South African student who talked about going to Mars like other people talked about weekend plans. Back to before Elon Musk became the richest man in the world. Back to when he was just a boy who made her believe anything was possible. This is the story of their love, their loss, and the note that changed everything. Justine Musk stared at the cream-colored envelope on her kitchen table. Her coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but she hadn't moved. She couldn't. The envelope had no return address, just her name written in black ink across the front. The handwriting made her stomach twist into a tight knot. She knew that handwriting. She'd seen it on birthday cards, on notes stuck to the refrigerator, on the back of a photograph she'd hidden in a box 20 years ago. It was Thursday morning in September 2024. Outside her Los Angeles home, the sun was bright and warm. Her 5 sons were living their own lives now. Young men scattered across different cities, building careers, finding themselves. The house felt too quiet these days. Too empty. Most mornings, Justine liked the peace. But not today. Today, the silence felt heavy. She picked up the envelope with shaking hands. It was light. Something small inside. She turned it over once, twice, 3 times. Part of her wanted to throw it away without opening it. Part of her had been waiting for this moment for 2 decades. Justine took a deep breath and tore open the seal. Inside was a single photograph, 4 inches by 6 inches. The edges were slightly worn, like someone had handled it many times over the years. She pulled it out slowly. The photo showed a younger version of herself standing next to a tall, thin man with intense eyes. They were both smiling. She wore a simple white dress. He wore a dark suit that didn't quite fit right. Behind them was the stone wall of Dornoch Cathedral in Scotland. Their wedding day. January 2000. She remembered that moment perfectly. The cold Scottish air. The ancient cathedral. The way Elon had looked at her like she was the only person in the entire world. They'd been so young, so full of dreams, so certain that love and ambition could exist together without one destroying the other. They'd been wrong. Justine flipped the photo over. On the back, written in that same handwriting, were words she'd never seen before. I found this in my old files. There's something written on it that I don't remember. Did I show this to you? You never said anything. After everything that happened between us, why did you keep my secret? I need to understand. Please. Her heart pounded in her chest. Her hands trembled so hard the photo almost slipped from her fingers. He'd found it. After all these years, he'd found the other photograph, the one with his note on the back. The note she'd hidden away. The note she'd never told anyone about. Not in interviews. Not in her article for Marie Claire. Not even in the raw, honest blog posts she'd written about their marriage. The secret. Justine set the photo down on the table and pressed her palms against her eyes. Memories flooded back like a dam breaking open. Some memories were beautiful. Walking across the Queen's University campus in 1992, talking about books and dreams and impossible futures. Some memories were painful, holding their first baby in Nevada, and then holding him for the last time in a hospital room when he was only 10 weeks old. Some memories were both beautiful and painful at once. The secret she'd kept was one of those. She'd protected Elon all these years, protected him from the world's judgment. Protected their sons from seeing their father as anything less than human. Protected herself from having to explain why she'd chosen forgiveness over anger. Now he was asking why. Justine stood up and walked to the window. Outside, a neighbor walked their dog. A car drove past. Normal life continued like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. This envelope meant she had to go back. She had to remember. She had to decide if she was finally ready to tell the whole truth. Not just about Elon Musk, the man the world knew, the billionaire, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, the person who bought Twitter and sent rockets to space and made headlines every single day. She had to tell the truth about Elon, the boy she'd met in a college dorm, the man she'd married, the father of her children, the person who'd broken her heart and then become someone she barely recognized. And she had to tell the truth about herself, about Jennifer Wilson, the girl with purple hair who dreamed of being a writer, about how she'd lost herself in someone else's enormous dreams, about how she'd found her way back. But to tell that story, to answer his question, she had to start at the very beginning. She had to go back to 1989, to a small city in Canada, to a teenage girl who felt like she didn't fit anywhere. A girl who had no idea that her whole life was about to change because of a boy who talked about going to Mars. Justine sat back down at the kitchen table. She picked up her phone and opened her email. She started typing, "Elon, yes, you gave it to me. I found it where you left it. I've kept it hidden for 20 years. If you really want to know why, I'll tell you. But you need to understand the whole story first. Our whole story, not the version the world thinks it knows. The real one. Are you ready for that?" She hit send before she could change her mind. Then she waited. The cream-colored envelope sat on the table, along with the photograph of two young people who'd believed love could conquer anything. Justine looked at their smiling faces and felt tears sting her eyes. They'd been so young, so hopeful, so completely unprepared for what was coming. Her phone buzzed. A new email. "I'm ready. Tell me everything." Justine closed her eyes and let herself remember. Let herself go back to the beginning. Back to Ontario. Back to purple hair and fantasy novels and feeling different from everyone else. Back to before she knew what it meant to love someone who wanted to change the entire world. Back to before she learned that sometimes the person you love most can make you disappear. And back to the moment when she'd made a choice that would define the rest of her life. A choice to keep a secret that would protect them both, even after everything fell apart. The story was ready to be told. Finally, Jennifer Wilson was 15 years old when she decided she didn't want to be normal. It was 1989, and she lived in Peterborough, Ontario, a small city about 2 hours northeast of Toronto. Most people had never heard of it. That's how Jennifer felt about herself too. Like nobody had heard of her. Like she was invisible. She sat in her bedroom after school, looking at herself in the mirror. Brown hair. Average face. Nothing special. Around her, the walls were covered with posters of fantasy book covers, dragons and castles, and warriors with swords. On her desk sat notebooks filled with stories she'd written. Stories about magical worlds where girls like her could be heroes. But here, in regular life, she was just another quiet kid in a small town. "That changes today," she whispered to her reflection. She picked up the box of purple hair dye she'd bought at the drugstore. Her mom was going to be furious. Her teachers would probably say something. The popular girls at school would definitely laugh. Jennifer didn't care anymore. She wanted to be someone. She wanted people to see her. She wanted her outside to match how she felt inside, different, creative, bold. 2 hours later, her hair was bright purple. Not a subtle purple. Not a maybe it's purple in certain light purple. Actual, vibrant, impossible to ignore purple. Her mother walked past her bedroom, glanced in, and stopped dead in her tracks. "Jennifer, what did you do to your hair?" "I dyed it," Jennifer said calmly. "I like it." "You look like... Her mother couldn't find the words. "Why would you do this?" "Because I wanted to," Jennifer said. "Because I'm tired of being invisible." Her mother stared at her for a long moment. Then she sighed. "You were never invisible, sweetheart. You just think differently than other people." "Exactly," Jennifer said. "So now I look different too." The next day at Kenner Collegiate Vocational Institute, everyone stared. The popular girls whispered and giggled. Some boys made jokes. A few teachers frowned. But Jennifer held her head high and walked through the hallways like she owned them. One girl from her English class caught up with her at lunch. "I love your hair," she said quietly. "I wish I was brave enough to do something like that." Jennifer smiled. "You can be. You just have to stop caring what everyone else thinks." But the truth was, Jennifer did care. Not about being popular or fitting in. She'd given up on that a long time ago. She cared about being remembered, about mattering, about doing something important with her life. She spent her lunch periods in the library, reading fantasy novels by authors like Anne Rice and writing her own dark imaginative stories. While other teenagers talked about boys and parties and clothes, Jennifer talked about plot structure and character development and world building. Her English teacher, Mrs. Henderson, was the only adult who seemed to understand her. "You have a gift, Jennifer," Mrs. Henderson told her one afternoon, handing back a creative writing assignment. "Your stories are dark, yes, but they're also powerful. You see the world differently. That's gonna take you places." "What kind of places?" Jennifer asked. "Wherever you want to go," Mrs. Henderson said. "But you have to believe you deserve to get there. That's the hard part." Jennifer thought about that a lot over the next few years. Did she believe she deserved success? Did she believe her stories mattered? Did she believe she could actually become the writer she dreamed of being? Some days, yes. Other days, she felt like a weird kid from a small town who would never escape. By the time she reached her final year of high school in 1992, Jennifer had decided something important. She was getting out of Peterborough. She was going to the university. She was going to study English and creative writing. She was going to become a published author. She applied to several schools. When the acceptance letter from Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario arrived, Jennifer felt like she could finally breathe. Kingston was only 2 hours from Peterborough, but it felt like a different world. Queen's was one of Canada's best universities. The campus was beautiful. Old stone buildings, tree-lined paths, students from all over the world. This was where she belonged. This was where her real life would begin. Her parents drove her to Kingston in September 1992. They helped carry boxes up to her residence hall room, a small space she'd share with a roommate she hadn't met yet. Her mother cried a little. Her father told her to study hard and call home every week. When they left, Jennifer stood in her tiny dorm room and felt equal parts terrified and thrilled. She was free. She was Jennifer Wilson, future author. She was gonna write stories that mattered. She was gonna figure out who she really was, away from the small town and the people who'd known her since kindergarten. That night, there was a residence hall meeting in the common room. All the first-year students gathered, nervous and excited. Jennifer sat in the back, observing. She was good at watching people, figuring them out, imagining their stories. That's when she noticed him. A tall, skinny guy with intense eyes sat near the front. He had an unusual way of sitting very still, very focused, like he was thinking about something important even while everyone around him chatted and laughed. His clothes didn't quite fit right. He looked uncomfortable in his own skin. Jennifer understood that feeling. During the meeting, the residence advisor asked everyone to introduce themselves and share one interesting fact. When it was the tall guy's turn, he stood up. "I'm Elon Musk," he said in an accent. Jennifer couldn't quite place. "I'm from South Africa. And I think humans need to become a multi-planetary species to survive long-term, so I'm going to help make that happen." Several people laughed. They thought he was joking. He wasn't smiling. Jennifer didn't laugh. She leaned forward, suddenly very interested. Who was this strange boy who talked about other planets like most people talked about weekend plans? After the meeting, everyone scattered. Some people went to their rooms. Others headed out to explore campus. Jennifer stayed in the common room pretending to read a book, but actually watching Elon Musk, who was now reading a thick textbook about physics. She wanted to talk to him. She wanted to know what he meant about other planets. She wanted to understand why he seemed so serious, so focused, so completely different from everyone else. But she was nervous. What would she say? Would he think she was weird? Then she remembered. She had purple hair. She wrote dark fantasy stories. She'd already decided not to care what people thought. Jennifer stood up, walked across the common room, and sat down in the chair next to Elon. "Multiplanetary species," she said. "That's an interesting goal." Elon looked up from his textbook. He studied her for a moment. Her purple hair, her confident expression, her genuine curiosity. Then he smiled. Just a small smile, but real. "Most people think I'm crazy," he said. "I don't," Jennifer said. "I think you're ambitious. There's a difference." "What about you?" Elon asked. "What's your interesting fact?" "I'm going to be a famous author," Jennifer said. "I'm going to write stories that people remember." Elon nodded slowly. Big dreams, he said. The only kind worth having, Jennifer replied. They talked for 2 hours that night. About books. He loved science fiction, especially Douglas Adams and Isaac Asimov. About the future, he believed technology could solve almost any problem. About feeling different. He'd been bullied badly in South Africa, beaten up so many times he'd had to have surgery on his nose. She told him about being the weird girl with purple hair in a small town. They both felt like outsiders. They both had enormous dreams. They both believed they were meant for something more than ordinary life. When Jennifer finally went back to her room that night, her roommate was already asleep. Jennifer lay in her narrow dorm bed, staring at the ceiling, and thought, something just changed. I don't know what yet, but something important just happened. She was right. Meeting Elon Musk in that common room at Queen's University in September 1992 was the moment that would define the rest of Jennifer Wilson's life. She just didn't know it yet. She didn't know that the serious boy who talked about Mars would one day become her husband, that they would create a family together, that they would lose a child together, that they would break each other's hearts. She didn't know that 22 years later she'd be sitting in a house in Los Angeles, holding a photograph and trying to explain to him and to herself why she'd kept his most painful secret hidden all these years. All she knew that September night in 1992 was that Elon Musk was the most interesting person she'd ever met. And Jennifer Wilson, who would later change her name to Justine, was ready for something interesting to finally happen in her life. Jennifer saw Elon again 2 days later in the dining hall. He was sitting alone at a corner table reading while he ate. A physics textbook propped open against his water glass. A notebook beside his plate covered in equations and sketches. He looked completely absorbed, like the noise and chaos of 100 students eating lunch didn't exist. Jennifer grabbed her tray and walked over without hesitation. "Is this seat taken?" she asked. Elon looked up, startled. Then he recognized her and his face relaxed. "No. Sit." She sat down across from him. "What are you reading?" "Thermodynamics," he said. "It's fascinating, actually. The laws of energy transfer can be applied to so many different systems. Most people would have changed the subject." Jennifer leaned forward. "Like what?" Elon's eyes lit up. For the next 20 minutes, he explained how thermodynamics related to rocket engines, battery storage, and even biological systems. Jennifer didn't understand all of it, but she loved watching him talk. His whole body came alive when he discussed ideas. His hands moved through the air, sketching invisible diagrams. His voice grew stronger, more confident. This was a different person than the awkward boy sitting alone with his textbook. "Sorry," Elon said suddenly, stopping mid-sentence. "I'm talking too much. People tell me I do that." "Don't apologize," Jennifer said. "I like listening. You actually care about things. Most people our age just care about parties and grades." "You don't?" Elon asked. "I care about stories," Jennifer said. "About creating something that lasts. About mattering." Elon nodded slowly. "That's exactly it. Mattering. Doing something important enough that people remember you did it." "What do you want to be remembered for?" Jennifer asked. Elon didn't hesitate. "Helping humanity become sustainable. We need electric cars to stop destroying the planet. We need to get to Mars in case something happens to Earth. We need better battery technology, solar energy, things that actually solve problems instead of just making rich people richer." "That's a lot," Jennifer said. "I know," Elon said quietly. "Sometimes I think I'm crazy, but I can't stop thinking about it. It keeps me up at night. All these problems that need solving and not enough people working on them." Jennifer understood that feeling. She stayed up late writing stories, unable to sleep until she got the words right, driven by something she couldn't quite explain. "What about you?" Elon asked. "What kind of stories do you write?" "Dark ones," Jennifer admitted. "Fantasy, mostly. About women who fight back, who refuse to be victims, who find power in unexpected places." "Like you?" Elon said. Jennifer felt her cheeks flush. "What do you mean?" "Purple hair in a small town," Elon said. "That takes courage. You're fighting back against normal, against invisible." Nobody had ever described her that way before. Most people thought her purple hair was just teenage rebellion. Elon saw it as something more. They started meeting for lunch every day after that. Then breakfast. Then late-night study sessions in the common room when neither could sleep. They talked about everything: childhood, family, dreams, fears, ideas that seemed too big to say out loud to anyone else. Elon told her about growing up in Pretoria, South Africa, about his parents' difficult divorce, about reading science fiction books and comic books to escape reality, about being bullied so badly he'd wake up dreading school every single day. "They threw me down a flight of concrete stairs once," he said quietly one night, "kicked me until I couldn't see straight. I was in the hospital for weeks." Jennifer felt anger rise in her chest. Why didn't the teachers stop it? Elon shrugged. They didn't care. Or they didn't notice. "I was just the weird kid who read too much and talked about strange things." "I'm sorry that happened to you," Jennifer said, "but look at you now. You got out. You're here. You're going to do amazing things." "Maybe," Elon said, "if I don't fail." "You won't," Jennifer said with absolute certainty. She didn't know where that certainty came from. She just knew it was true. Elon Musk was going to be someone important. She could feel it. By October, they were inseparable. Everyone in residence knew them as a pair, the purple-haired writer and the intense South African guy who talked about rockets. Some students thought they were weird. Others were jealous of how connected they seemed. Jennifer didn't care what anyone thought. For the first time in her life, she felt completely understood. Elon saw her, really saw her. Not just the purple hair or the strange stories. He saw the girl underneath who wanted desperately to matter, and she saw him. Not just the brilliant mind or the ambitious plans. She saw the lonely boy who'd been hurt and who covered his pain with impossible goals. One cold November evening, they walked around campus together. Yellow and orange leaves covered the paths. The old stone buildings looked almost magical in the fading light. "Can I ask you something?" Elon said, stopping under a large oak tree. "Anything," Jennifer said. "Do you want to get ice cream with me?" "Like, officially, as a date?" Jennifer's heart jumped. She'd been wondering if Elon felt the same way she did. If their friendship was becoming something more. Now she knew. "Yes," she said, smiling. "I'd like that." They went to a small ice cream shop on Princess Street in downtown Kingston. Elon ordered vanilla. Jennifer ordered chocolate with rainbow sprinkles. They sat by the window and talked until the shop closed. That night, walking back to campus, Elon reached for Jennifer's hand. She took it without hesitation. His hand was warm and a little sweaty. He held on tight, like he was afraid she might disappear. "I've never had a girlfriend before," Elon admitted. "I don't really know what I'm doing." "Me neither," Jennifer said. "But we'll figure it out together." And they did. Over the next few months, their relationship grew. They studied together, argued about ideas, pushed each other to think bigger. Elon helped Jennifer see that her writing dreams were achievable, not just fantasy. Jennifer helped Elon understand that being brilliant didn't mean he had to be alone. They had their first real fight in January about something small, whether to go to a party or stay in and read. It escalated quickly. Both of them were stubborn, intense, unwilling to back down. Jennifer stormed off to her room. Elon showed up an hour later with a handwritten apology note. "I'm not good at this," he said. "Relationships, emotions. But I'm trying. I care about you. I don't want to mess this up." Jennifer pulled him into her room, and they talked it through. She learned something important that night. Elon struggled with emotional expression. He could talk about physics and business and Mars for hours. But feelings made him uncomfortable. He wanted to logic his way through problems that required something else. But he was trying. That mattered. In February, Elon told her he was transferring to the University of Pennsylvania. He'd only planned to stay at Queen's for 1 year. Penn had a better program for what he wanted to study. Physics and business combined. He needed both to accomplish his goals. Jennifer felt like someone had knocked the air from her lungs. "When?" she managed to ask. "September," Elon said. "But we can make it work. Long distance. Letters. Phone calls. I'm not giving up on this. On us. Promise?" Jennifer asked, hating how small her voice sounded. "Promise," Elon said. He meant it when he said it. They both did. But neither of them understood how hard long distance would be. How much would change. How easy it was to drift apart when you weren't face to face. Jennifer spent the rest of that school year trying to memorize everything about being with Elon. The way he laughed at unexpected moments. The way his whole face changed when he figured out a difficult problem. The way he looked at her like she was the smartest, most interesting person he'd ever met. She didn't want to forget any of it. Because deep down, she was afraid that once he left, everything would change. She was right. Elon left for the University of Pennsylvania in September 9. Jennifer stood on the platform at Kingston Station, watching his bus pull away. He waved from the window until she couldn't see him anymore. Then she walked back to campus alone, feeling like part of her had been ripped away. Long distance was supposed to be manageable. Philadelphia wasn't that far from Kingston. They could visit. They could write letters. They could call each other. But Elon threw himself into his studies at Penn with an intensity that shocked even Jennifer. He was taking courses in physics and business, planning his future, networking with professors. When they talked on the phone, which became less and less frequent, he sounded distracted. His mind was always somewhere else. "I'm working on a paper about solar energy," he'd say. "The potential is incredible. If we could just improve efficiency by—" "Elon," Jennifer would interrupt. "Can we talk about us for a minute?" "We are talking," he'd say, confused. "I'm telling you what I'm working on." Jennifer tried to explain that she wanted to know how he felt, not just what he was thinking. But emotional conversations made Elon uncomfortable. He'd change the subject or suddenly remember an assignment he needed to finish. The distance between them grew. Not just miles, something deeper. Jennifer focused on her own life. She was studying English literature, taking creative writing workshops, working on her fantasy novel. Her professors praised her dark, imaginative style. Other students in her workshops didn't always understand her stories, too violent, too strange, too intense. But Jennifer didn't care. She was writing the stories she needed to write. She made friends. She went to parties occasionally, though she never felt like she belonged there. She dated someone briefly, a guy from her Victorian literature class, who wrote poetry. It lasted 3 weeks before Jennifer realized she was comparing everything he said to things Elon would say. It wasn't fair to either of them. By the spring of 1994, she and Elon barely talked anymore. Their phone calls had dwindled to once a month. Awkward conversations where they ran out of things to say after 10 minutes. Jennifer told herself it was over. First love rarely lasted. People grew and changed. She needed to move on. She graduated from Queen's University in May 1995 with her English degree. Her parents came to the ceremony, proud but worried about her future. "What are you going to do now?" her mother asked. "Have you thought about teaching or journalism?" Jennifer had thought about it, but neither felt right. She wanted to write novels, and she needed life experience first. She needed to see the world, try new things, figure out who she was outside of school. "I'm going to teach English in Japan," Jennifer announced. Her parents stared at her. "Japan?" her father said. "That's halfway around the world." "Exactly," Jennifer said. "I need to go somewhere completely different. I need an adventure." The truth was, she also needed to escape. Escape the memories of Elon. Escape the feeling that she'd lost something important before she'd fully understood what it was. In August 1995, Jennifer flew to Japan to teach English as a second language in a small city outside Tokyo. Everything was different. The language, the food, the customs, the way people interacted. She felt completely lost for the first 3 months. Then slowly, she adapted. She learned basic Japanese. She made friends with other foreign teachers. She taught elementary school students who giggled at her purple hair and practiced saying "hello, my name is" over and over until they got it right. At night, in her tiny apartment, Jennifer wrote. She worked on her fantasy novel about a young woman discovering magical powers in a dark, dangerous world. The story poured out of her. All the fear and anger and confusion she'd felt over the past few years transformed into something beautiful and terrible on the page. She thought about Elon sometimes. Wondered what he was doing. If he ever thought about her. If he'd found someone else. She told herself it didn't matter. That part of her life was over. Then in March 1997, Jennifer checked her email at the internet cafe near her apartment and saw a message that made her heart stop. The sender, Elon Musk, had zipped. The subject line, "Do you remember me?" Jennifer stared at the screen for a full minute before she could make herself open it. "Jennifer, I don't know if this email address still works. I found it through Queen's alumni records. I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I'm in Silicon Valley now. I dropped out of Stanford after 2 days to start a company with my brother. It's called Zip2. We're building online city guides for newspapers. It's crazy and hard, and I'm working 100-hour weeks. But I think we're onto something. I've been thinking about you a lot lately. About our conversations at Queen's. About how you understood what I was trying to do even when nobody else did. About how I messed everything up by leaving and then being too focused on school to maintain what we had. I heard through mutual friends that you're teaching in Japan. That sounds amazing. You always wanted adventure. I know it's been almost 4 years. I know I don't have any right to ask this. But if you're ever back in North America, I'd love to see you. To talk. To catch up. I miss you. I never stopped missing you. Elon. Jennifer read the email 3 times. Then she closed her laptop and walked outside into the cool March evening. Her heart was racing. Her hands were shaking. All the feelings she'd carefully packed away came flooding back: the excitement of those first conversations, the pain of watching him leave, the loneliness of trying to move on. She'd built a new life here. She'd found herself. She was writing. She was growing. Did she really want to open that door again? But she couldn't stop thinking about his words. I never stopped missing you. Jennifer went back inside and typed a reply. Elon, of course I remember you. I remember everything. Japan has been good for me. I've been writing. I've been living. I've been figuring out who I am when I'm not trying to be what someone else needs. I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you asking to be friends? Are you asking for something more? Because 4 years is a long time. We're different people now. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about you too. About what we had. About what we could have been if things had been different. My contract here ends in August. I'm planning to come back to Canada, maybe move somewhere bigger. Toronto, probably. To focus on my writing, or maybe California. I hear the weather is better there. Jennifer. She hit send before she could overthink it. Elon replied within an hour. California. Definitely California. Come to California. Over the next few months, they emailed constantly. Long messages about everything they'd been doing, thinking, dreaming. Elon told her about Zip2, about the challenges of running a startup, about his vision for the future, electric cars, space exploration, sustainable energy. His dreams had only gotten bigger. Jennifer told him about Japan, about her novel, about the woman she'd become, stronger, more independent, less willing to disappear into someone else's life. I need you to understand something, she wrote in June. If I come to California, I'm not coming to be your girlfriend who sits on the sidelines while you change the world. I'm coming because I want to be there. Because I have my own dreams too. My writing matters as much as your company's. Elon's response came quickly. I know. I was an idiot before. I took you for granted. I won't make that mistake again. Come to California. Please. Let's see if we can do this right this time. Jennifer gave notice at her teaching job. She said goodbye to her friends in Japan. She packed up her tiny apartment and her notebooks full of story ideas. In August 1997, she flew to San Francisco. Elon picked her up at the airport. He looked older, thinner, more intense. He'd been living on fast food and energy drinks, sleeping in his office, building something from nothing. But when he saw her, his whole face lit up with that smile she remembered. The smile that made her believe anything was possible. You came, he said. I came, Jennifer agreed. He pulled her into a hug that lasted a long time. She breathed in the familiar smell of him, coffee and laundry detergent, and something uniquely Elon. I missed you so much, he whispered into her purple hair. I missed you too, she admitted. They drove to Palo Alto in Elon's beat-up car, talking non-stop, trying to catch up on 4 years in one conversation. Jennifer felt the old connection returning. Stronger now, more mature. They weren't kids anymore. They'd both grown. They'd both struggled. They'd both survived without each other. Maybe now they could be together without losing themselves. Maybe this time would be different. Jennifer looked out the window at the California landscape. Palm trees and sunshine and endless possibilities. She was 23 years old. She was in love with a man who wanted to change the world. She was going to write her novels and make her own mark. This was a new beginning. She didn't know yet that new beginnings could also be the start of heartbreak. She didn't know that love and ambition would eventually collide in ways she couldn't imagine. She didn't know that in just a few years she'd be standing in a hospital holding a baby who would only live 10 weeks. All she knew was that Elon Musk had found her again. And this time she was ready to see where it led. California was nothing like Jennifer had imagined. She'd pictured beaches and movie stars and perfect weather every day. Instead, she found herself in Palo Alto, a college town filled with ambitious young people hunched over laptops in coffee shops, all trying to build the next big thing. Elon lived in a small apartment that looked more like an office than a home. Papers everywhere, whiteboards covered in diagrams and business plans. Empty pizza boxes stacked by the door. He barely slept there. Most nights he crashed on a beanbag chair at the Zip2 office. "This is temporary," he promised Jennifer. "Once we get more funding, once things stabilize, it'll get better." Jennifer wanted to believe him. She got a job at a bookstore to pay her bills and spent every other moment working on her novel. She'd changed her first name to Justine. It felt more sophisticated, more like the author she wanted to become. Jennifer Wilson was the small-town girl. Justine Wilson was going to be a published writer, Elon and Justine. It had a nice ring to it, but she saw him less than she'd expected. He worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week. Zip2 was his entire life. When they did spend time together, he was distracted, checking his pager constantly, talking about business problems she didn't fully understand. "The newspapers don't get it yet," he'd say. Frustrated. "But they will. Online city guides are the future. We just need to hold on long enough to prove it." Justine supported him. She brought him food when he forgot to eat. She listened to his problems. She believed in his vision even when investors didn't. But sometimes, late at night in that messy apartment, she felt very alone. She'd moved across the world to be with him, and he was never there. Still, they had good moments. Sunday mornings when Elon actually took a break and they'd walk around Stanford campus talking about books and ideas. Late nights when he'd come home exhausted and curl up next to her. Finally still, finally present moments. When he'd look at her and say, "I couldn't do this without you. You keep me sane." Those moments made everything else bearable. In early 1999, things started changing fast. Zip2 was gaining traction. Newspapers were signing contracts. Investors were paying attention. Elon started talking about selling the company. "If we can get the right offer," he told Justine one night, "we could actually make real money. Enough to start the next thing." "What's the next thing?" Justine asked. "Online banking," Elon said, his eyes lighting up. "Financial services for the internet age. It's going to be huge." Justine smiled. His ambition never stopped. One summit reached, another mountain appeared. "What about us?" she asked carefully. "Where do we fit in all these plans?" Elon looked at her surprised. "You're part of everything. You know that." "Am I?" Justine said. "Because sometimes it feels like your companies are your real relationship and I'm just here." Elon was quiet for a moment. Then he took her hand. "I'm not good at this. At balancing. At showing people what they mean to me. But you matter. Justine. You matter more than you know." It wasn't quite the answer she wanted, but it was honest. That counted for something. In November 1999, Elon proposed. Not with a fancy dinner or a planned romantic moment. They were sitting on the couch in their apartment, eating takeout Chinese food, when he suddenly said, "We should get married." Justine looked up from her noodles. "What?" "Get married," Elon repeated. "We love each other. We're partners. We should make it official." "That's your proposal?" Justine said, half laughing. While eating lo mein, Elon looked embarrassed. "I should have planned something better. I'm terrible at romance, but I mean it. I want to marry you." Justine set down her food. Her heart was beating fast. This wasn't how she'd imagined a proposal. But it was so perfectly Elon, awkward, direct, sincere. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." Elon smiled. That rare, genuine smile that made him look young and hopeful. He kissed her, tasting like soy sauce and promise. They got married in January 2000 at Dornoch Cathedral in Scotland, a beautiful old stone church in a small town. They wanted something intimate, something meaningful, far from the chaos of Silicon Valley. Just family and a few close friends. Justine wore a simple white dress. Elon wore a suit that didn't quite fit. They said their vows in the ancient cathedral and meant every word. Justine felt happy. Genuinely, completely happy. This was the man she'd fallen in love with at 19. Now she was 26, and they were building a life together. 1 month later, in February 2000, Compaq bought Zip2 for $307 million. Elon's share was $22 million. Overnight, they went from struggling startup life to being wealthy. Not billionaire wealthy, but comfortable. More money than Justine had ever imagined having. She thought maybe now things would slow down. Maybe now Elon would take a breath, enjoy their success, focus on their marriage. She was wrong. Within weeks, Elon started X.com, an online banking company. He threw his entire fortune into it. He worked even harder than before. The money didn't matter to him. Only the mission mattered. Only changing the world mattered. Justine tried to be understanding. This was who she'd married. She'd known that from the beginning. Elon Musk wasn't someone who could sit still and enjoy success. He needed the next challenge, the next impossible goal. But she was lonely. So lonely. She spent her days writing, working on her fantasy novel, trying to build her own career. But the publishing world was hard. Rejection letters piled up. Her agent told her to be patient. These things took time. Meanwhile, Elon's company was growing fast. X.com would eventually merge with another company and become PayPal. He was building something revolutionary. Everyone said so. Justine was proud of him. She really was. But she missed the boy who used to talk to her for hours about ideas. Now, when they talked, he was tired, stressed, focused on the next problem to solve. Their conversations became shorter. Their connection felt strained. In late 2000, Justine got pregnant. She was terrified and excited and hopeful all at once. Maybe a baby would bring them closer. Maybe becoming parents would help Elon slow down, be more present, remember what really mattered. She told him one evening after work. He'd just come home from a brutal day of meetings. "Elon," she said nervously, "I'm pregnant." He stared at her. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then he smiled. A real smile. "Really?" "Really," Justine said. He pulled her into a hug. "That's amazing. We're gonna have a baby." For a few weeks, things felt better. Elon talked about being a father, about teaching their child about science and engineering. He seemed more engaged, more present. But as Justine's pregnancy progressed, Elon's work consumed him again. X.com was having problems. Internal conflicts, technical challenges, competition from other startups. He worked longer hours than ever. Justine went to doctor's appointments alone. She read pregnancy books alone. She felt the baby kick and had nobody to share the moment with. "I'm building this for our family," Elon would say when she complained. "For our future. For our child." Justine wanted to believe that. But it felt like he was building it instead of being with his family. Instead of being with her. Their son was born in 2002. They named him Nevada Alexander Musk. He was perfect. Tiny and pink and absolutely perfect. Justine held him in the hospital and felt love so overwhelming it scared her. This little person depended on her completely. She would do anything for him. Anything. Elon held Nevada carefully, like he might break. "He's so small," Elon whispered. "He's incredible." For 10 weeks, Justine experienced a joy she'd never known existed. Nevada was a good baby. He slept well, ate well, smiled at her. She spent hours just watching him, memorizing his face, his tiny fingers, the way he made little sounds in his sleep. She thought, this is what matters. This is what life is really about. Not companies or money or changing the world. This tiny person, this love. Elon was busier than ever. PayPal was preparing to go public. But he came home when he could. Held Nevada, talked to him about rockets and space even though the baby couldn't understand. Justine took hundreds of photos. She wanted to remember everything. She didn't know she'd need those photos to remember him at all. She didn't know that in just a few more weeks, everything would shatter. She didn't know that one morning she'd go into Nevada's room and find him not breathing. She didn't know that the worst moment of her entire life was coming. All she knew was that she loved her baby more than anything in the world. And for 10 beautiful weeks that was enough. Justine woke up that morning feeling peaceful. It was a Saturday in May 2002. The sun was shining through their bedroom window. Elon was already awake, working on his laptop in bed. Nevada had slept through the night for the first time in a week. Justine felt rested, hopeful, happy. "I'm going to check on him," she said, stretching. Elon murmured, eyes on his screen. Justine walked down the hallway to Nevada's nursery. She'd painted it pale blue with white clouds. A mobile hung over his crib, stars and planets spinning slowly. She pushed open the door, smiling, ready to see her baby's face. Nevada was lying in his crib, very still. Too still. Justine's smile disappeared. Something was wrong. She could feel it instantly, a cold terror flooding her body. "Nevada," she whispered, moving closer. He wasn't moving. His chest wasn't rising and falling. His lips looked blue. "Nevada!" Justine screamed. She grabbed him from the crib. His little body was limp, cold. She shook him gently, desperately. "Wake up, baby, please wake up." Nothing. Elon came running into the room. "What's wrong?" "He's not breathing," Justine sobbed. "Call 911. Call them now." Everything after that happened in a blur. The ambulance, the paramedics working on her tiny baby, the ride to the hospital, Justine holding Nevada's hand, begging him to come back. "Please, sweetheart, please. Mommy's here. Please breathe." At the hospital, doctors rushed Nevada into the emergency room. Justine and Elon waited in a small room with plastic chairs and terrible fluorescent lights. Justine couldn't stop shaking. Elon paced back and forth, his face pale, his hands clenched into fists. "He's gonna be okay," Elon kept saying. "They'll save him. They have to save him." A doctor came in, a woman with kind eyes and a tired face. Justine knew before the doctor said anything. She could see it in the woman's expression. "I'm so sorry," the doctor said quietly. "We did everything we could, but your son didn't make it." The room tilted. Justine heard a sound like an animal in pain and realized it was coming from her own throat. "No," she whispered. "No, no, that's wrong. You're wrong. He was fine. He was sleeping. He was perfect. It appears to be sudden infant death syndrome," the doctor said gently. "SIDS. There was nothing you could have done. Nothing anyone could have done. Sometimes babies just stop breathing. We don't fully understand why." Justine couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her baby was dead. Her perfect, beautiful baby was dead. "Can I see him?" she managed to ask. The doctor nodded. "Of course. Take all the time you need." They brought Nevada to a private room. He looked like he was sleeping, peaceful, like nothing was wrong. Justine held him, rocked him, whispered to him. "I love you so much," she said through tears. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you." Elon stood by the window, his back to them. His shoulders were shaking. He was crying silently, trying to hold it together and failing. Justine wanted him to come over, to hold her, to hold Nevada one last time together. But he couldn't seem to move. He just stood there, frozen. After an hour, the nurses gently told them it was time. Time to say goodbye. Time to let Nevada go. Justine kissed her baby's forehead. "Goodbye, sweet boy. Mommy loves you. Always." They left the hospital without their son. Drove home to a house that still had his nursery, his toys, his clothes. A house that suddenly felt empty and wrong. The next few days were the worst of Justine's life. People came and went. Family, friends, people trying to help. They brought food nobody could eat. They said things like, "God has a plan and he's in a better place. And you're young, you can have more children." Every word felt like a knife. Justine couldn't stop crying. She sat in Nevada's nursery for hours, holding his blanket, breathing in his smell. She couldn't sleep. When she did, she dreamed about finding him in his crib and woke up screaming. Elon shut down completely. He went back to work 3 days after Nevada died. 3 days. Justine couldn't believe it. "How can you work right now?" she asked, her voice hollow. "I have to," Elon said. His face was blank, empty. "The company needs me. People are depending on me." "I need you," Justine said. "I need you here with me." "I can't," Elon said quietly. "If I stop, if I let myself feel this, I'll fall apart. And I can't fall apart. I have to keep moving. Our son just died." Justine shouted. "You're supposed to fall apart. That's what normal people do." "I'm not normal people," Elon said. And he walked out the door. Justine felt abandoned. She'd lost her baby, and now she was losing her husband too. He was right there but completely unreachable. He wouldn't talk about Nevada. He wouldn't cry with her. He wouldn't even say Nevada's name. She tried everything. She tried giving him space. She tried forcing conversations. She tried begging him to go to therapy with her. Nothing worked. Elon buried himself in PayPal. Worked 20-hour days. Came home exhausted and went straight to Lee. When Justine tried to talk about their son, about their grief, about their marriage, Elon would change the subject or leave the room. 2 weeks after Nevada died, Justine found something on her nightstand, a book she'd been reading, with a note tucked inside. The handwriting was Elon's, but shaky, like he'd written it in a hurry or while upset. Justine opened the note with trembling hands. "I can't do this. I can't feel this. If I let myself feel it, I'll break. And if I break, everything I'm building will fail. I'm sorry I'm not who you need me to be. But I can't stop. Ever. Please don't hate me." Justine read it 3 times. Tears streamed down her face. She understood what he was saying. Elon was terrified. Terrified of his own grief. Terrified that if he let himself feel the full weight of losing Nevada, he wouldn't be able to function. So he chose work. He chose his companies. He chose to keep moving forward instead of falling apart. But that left Justine alone in her grief. Drowning in it, she wanted to show him the note. To talk about it. To make him understand that running away from pain didn't make it disappear. But she didn't. She folded the note carefully and hid it away in a box in her closet. She never mentioned it to him, never asked about it. Why? Because even in her own pain, she could see his. Even though he was handling it all wrong, she understood he was surviving the only way he knew how. And if she confronted him, if she pushed him to face emotions he couldn't handle, what would happen? Would he break completely? Would he leave? She couldn't risk losing him too. She'd already lost Nevada. She couldn't lose Elon. So she kept his secret, kept the note hidden. Pretended she didn't know how terrified he was underneath all that work and ambition. Justine went to therapy alone. She joined a support group for parents who'd lost children. She cried with strangers who understood her pain in ways her own husband couldn't. Slowly, painfully, she started to heal. Not recover. You never recover from losing a child. But she learned to carry the grief without it destroying her completely. Elon never healed. He just kept running. Their marriage changed after Nevada died. The warmth disappeared. The connection they'd had at Queen's University, those early days when they understood each other perfectly, it was gone. Justine felt like she was living with a stranger. But she stayed. She stayed because she'd loved him once. Because she'd promised in that Scottish cathedral to stay through good times and bad. Because she didn't know what else to do. And because deep in her heart, hidden in a box in her closet, was a note that proved Elon was still human underneath all his walls. Still the scared boy who'd been bullied in South Africa. Still someone who felt too much and dealt with it by feeling nothing at all. She kept his secret because love sometimes means protecting someone even when they're hurting you. Even when they can't protect you back. Justine didn't know that she'd keep that secret for 20 years. That she'd never tell anyone about the note. Not even when their marriage fell apart. Not even when the world asked her what went wrong. She just knew that some truths were too painful to share. Some truths belonged to the people who lived them. And Nevada Alexander Musk, who lived for only 10 perfect weeks, deserved parents who loved him enough to carry their grief with dignity. Even if they carried it separately. Even if it broke them both. Justine couldn't stand the silence in their house. Every room reminded her of Nevada. His nursery still had the pale blue walls and the Planet Mobile. She couldn't bring herself to change it, but she couldn't go in there either. The door stayed closed. 6 months after Nevada died, Elon came home from work and sat down across from her at the kitchen table. "We should try again," he said. Justine looked up confused. "Try what?" "Having another baby," Elon said. "We can do IVF. It's safer, more controlled. We can have the family we wanted." Justine felt anger rise in her chest. Nevada died 6 months ago. 6 months. And you want to just replace him? "I'm not trying to replace him," Elon said, frustrated. "But sitting here being sad isn't bringing him back. We need to move forward." "I am moving forward," Justine said. "I'm in therapy. I'm dealing with it. You're the one who won't even say his name." Elon was quiet for a moment. Then he said very quietly, "I think about him every day. Every single day. But thinking about him doesn't help. Having another child might." Justine wanted to scream at him. Wanted to tell him that grief didn't work that way. That you couldn't just fill the hole a lost child left behind with new children. But she also understood something else. Elon needed this. Needed something to fix. Something to work toward. He couldn't bring Nevada back. But he could create new life. That was something he could control. And Justine, she was so tired of being alone in this big empty house. So tired of grieving by herself. Maybe Elon was right. Maybe moving forward meant trying again. "Okay," she said finally. "We can try." They started IVF treatments in early 2003. The process was difficult. Hormones, appointments, procedures. But it gave Justine something to focus on besides her grief. In 2004, their twin sons were born. Griffin and Xavier. Justine held them in the hospital. And felt terrified. What if something happened to them too? What if she lost them like she lost Nevada? She could barely breathe from the fear. But the twins were healthy. Strong. They came home and filled the house with crying and feeding schedules and dirty diapers. Justine barely slept. But she didn't mind. Sleep meant nightmares. Taking care of her babies meant purpose. Elon was busier than ever. PayPal had been sold to eBay for $1.5 billion. Elon's share was around $180 million. Most people would have retired. Elon immediately started 2 new companies. SpaceX, building rockets to eventually go to Mars. Tesla, creating electric cars to save the planet. "You doing both?" Justine asked, exhausted from taking care of twin newborns. "At the same time?" "They're both important," Elon said. "Both necessary. Someone has to do it." Justine wanted to say, "Someone has to be here with your family too." But she was too tired to fight. In 2006, just 2 years after the twins, Justine had triplets through IVF: Kai, Saxon, and Damien. 5 boys. 5 sons under the age of 2. Justine's life became a blur of feedings, diaper changes, doctor appointments, and sleep deprivation. She hired help, nannies, housekeepers, anyone who could assist. But she was still the primary parent. Elon was there in name only. He'd come home late at night, peek in on the sleeping boys, and then go to his office to work more. Weekends meant catching up on emails and calls. Family dinners happened with his laptop open beside his plate. "Can you put that away?" Justine would ask. "Can you just be here with us for one meal?" "I am here," Elon would say, not looking up from his screen. "I'm sitting right here." But he wasn't. Not really. SpaceX's first 3 rocket launches failed. Each failure cost millions of dollars. The company was running out of money. Elon poured more of his personal fortune into it. He was stressed beyond anything Justine had seen before. Tesla was struggling too. The Roadster was delayed. Production problems. Investor concerns. Elon became CEO and tried to fix everything himself. The pressure was crushing him. Justine could see it. He lost weight, stopped sleeping, snapped at everyone around him. His entire personality changed. The curious, ambitious boy she'd fallen in love with had become someone harsh and demanding, and he directed some of that harshness at her. "You're not taking care of yourself," he said one evening, looking at her critically. "You should work out more. Dress better." Justine looked down at her sweatpants and t-shirt covered in baby spit up. She'd been up since 5 in the morning with crying triplets. She hadn't had time to shower, let alone work out. I'm taking care of 5 children under 4 years old, she said, her voice shaking. I'm doing my best. You used to be ambitious, Elon said. What happened to your writing? To your career goals? Justine felt like he'd slapped her. I had 5 babies in 2 years. That's what happened. I'm trying to keep them alive and healthy. That's my career right now. Other women manage both, Elon said. Justine stared at him. Get out, she said quietly. What? Get out of this room before I say something I can't take back. Elon left. He didn't apologize. Justine cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes, then dried her eyes and went back to taking care of her children, because they needed her. Even if their father didn't see her anymore. She tried to write during the boys' nap times, but she was too exhausted. The words wouldn't come. Her fantasy novel sat unfinished on her computer, mocking her. Who was she kidding? She wasn't a writer. She was just a tired mother who couldn't even keep her husband interested. She started seeing a therapist again. Not for grief this time, for herself. For her disappearing sense of identity. Tell me who you are, the therapist said. Justine opened her mouth to answer and realized she didn't know anymore. She was Elon's wife, the boy's mother. But who was Justine? The purple-haired girl who dreamed big, seemed like a different person from another lifetime. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know who I am anymore. One of the twins. Xavier started asking questions around age 3. Smart questions about how things worked, why the sky was blue, where babies came from. Xavier was sensitive, thoughtful, different from the other boys. Justine loved all her sons equally, but she understood Xavier in a special way. Xavier felt things deeply, like she did. Xavier noticed when people were sad or upset. Why doesn't Daddy play with us? Xavier asked one day. Daddy's very busy, Justine explained. He's trying to build rockets and cars that will help people. But we're his people, Xavier said, confused. Doesn't he want to help us? Justine didn't know how to answer that. The years blurred together. The boys grew. SpaceX's 4th rocket finally succeeded in 2008, barely. The company was saved. Elon was relieved but immediately started planning the next rocket. Tesla was in crisis. The 2008 financial collapse hit everyone hard. The company was weeks from bankruptcy. Elon invested his last dollars trying to save it. The stress at home became unbearable. Elon was angry all the time, critical, distant. Justine felt like she was walking on eggshells, trying to keep the house running and the children happy while their father fell apart. She tried to talk to him, tried to suggest marriage counseling, tried to remind him they were supposed to be partners. I don't have time for this right now, Elon would say. Everything's falling apart. Can you just handle things at home so I can focus on saving these companies? Justine was handling things at home. She handled everything at home, while also losing herself completely in the process. She looked in the mirror one morning and barely recognized the woman staring back. Where was the girl who dyed her hair purple? Who wrote dark fantasy novels? Who believed she could be someone important? That girl had disappeared. Erased. Swallowed up by motherhood and marriage to a man who could only see his own enormous dreams. Justine made a decision. She started writing again, late at night after everyone was asleep. Just for herself. Just to remember who she used to be. The words came slowly at first, then faster. Stories about women who refused to disappear, who fought back, who found themselves again. She didn't tell Elon. He wouldn't have cared anyway. In September 2008, SpaceX won a $1.6 billion contract with NASA. The company was saved. Elon was ecstatic. Justine was happy for him. She really was. But part of her wondered, when will it be enough? When will he have accomplished enough to finally be present? To finally see his family? The answer came 2 weeks later. But not in the way she expected. Elon came home early one afternoon. Justine was in the kitchen helping the triplets with a snack when he walked in. We need to talk, he said. Something in his voice made Justine's stomach drop. Boys, go play in the living room, she said. When they were alone, Elon sat down at the kitchen table. He wouldn't look at her. I can't do this anymore, he said quietly. Can't do what? Justine asked, though she already knew. This he was. The marriage. The world tilted. Justine grabbed the counter to steady herself. "What are you saying?" "I want a divorce," Elon said. He finally looked at her and his eyes were empty. "I'm sorry, but this isn't working. We're not working." Justine felt like she'd been hit by a truck. They had 5 children, 5 sons who needed both parents. And he wanted to just leave? "Is there someone else?" she heard herself ask. Elon hesitated. That was answer enough. "Who?" Justine demanded. "Her name is Tallulah," Elon said. "She's an actress. We met at a club in London a few months ago. Nothing happened while we were together. But I've realized I can't keep pretending everything's fine with us. It's not fine. It hasn't been fine for years." Justine sat down before her legs gave out. Years. He'd been unhappy for years and never said anything. Just let her keep trying, keep hoping, keep losing herself bit by bit, while he made his exit plan. "Get out," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Justine, get out of this house right now." Elon left. Justine sat at the kitchen table. Numb. She could hear her boys playing in the next room. 5 children who were about to learn their parents were getting divorced. 5 children whose lives were about to change forever. She thought about the note hidden in her closet. The one from 6 years ago where Elon admitted he couldn't let himself feel, couldn't let himself break. Well, he'd just broken her instead. And now she had to figure out how to put herself back together. For her sons. For herself. For the girl with purple hair who'd promised herself she'd matter someday. That girl was still in there somewhere. Justine was going to find her again. Justine didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. Divorce. Elon wanted a divorce. After everything they'd been through. Nevada. 5 more children. Years of supporting his impossible dreams, he was leaving her for someone else. An actress named Tallulah. Someone young and beautiful, and uncomplicated. Someone who didn't remind him of dead babies and failed promises. The anger came in waves. Then the grief. Then back to anger. By morning, Justine had made a decision. She wasn't going to fall apart. She wasn't going to be the abandoned wife who couldn't function. She'd survived losing Nevada. She'd survived 6 years of emotional neglect. She would survive this too. But first, she needed to understand what was really happening. Elon came by the house 3 days later to talk about logistics. The boys were at school, and with nannies. Justine had prepared herself, showered, dressed in real clothes, put on makeup. She wanted him to see that she wasn't destroyed, even though she was. "I've talked to lawyers," Elon said, sitting stiffly on the couch. "We need to figure out custody arrangements. Money. The house." "When did you talk to lawyers?" Justine asked. "How long have you been planning this?" Elon looked uncomfortable. "A few weeks. I needed to understand my options before you blindsided me," Justine finished. "Before you blew up our family." "That's not fair," Elon said. "You know we've been unhappy. Both of us. I've been unhappy because you're never here," Justine said, her voice rising. "Because you criticize me and ignore me and treat me like I'm just staff for your children. But I didn't give up. I kept trying. I went to therapy. I asked you to come with me." "I don't have time for therapy," Elon said. "You never have time for anything that matters," Justine said quietly. "Except your companies. My companies are trying to save humanity," Elon said, defensive. "That matters. What about saving your marriage?" Justine asked. "Did that matter at all?" Elon was silent. Justine felt tears threatening but pushed them down. "Tell me about her. About Tallulah." "Why do you want to know?" "Because I deserve to know who you're replacing me with." Elon sighed. "She's 22. British. An actress. We met at a nightclub when I was in London for meetings. We talked for hours. She's easy to be around. She doesn't need anything from me emotionally. She just likes me." 22. The same age Justine had been when she first moved to California for Elon. Before Nevada. Before everything got hard. "So you want a younger, prettier version of who I used to be," Justine said. "Before I got tired and sad and complicated." "That's not," Elon started. "It is exactly that," Justine interrupted. "You want someone who doesn't remind you of pain. Someone who thinks you're exciting and brilliant without knowing the cost. Someone who hasn't watched you run away from every difficult emotion you've ever had. Elon stood up. I didn't come here to fight. I came to talk about the divorce. Then talk, Justine said. What do you want? Over the next hour, they discussed the horrible details. Joint custody, the boys would spend time with both parents. Justine would keep the house initially. Elon would pay child support and alimony. Everything would be handled through lawyers. Cold. Transactional. Like their marriage was just another business deal that hadn't worked out. When Elon left, Justine finally let herself cry. Big, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. She cried for the marriage they'd had, for the future she'd imagined, for the girl who'd believed love could conquer anything. That girl had been wrong. The next few months were brutal. Lawyers, paperwork, dividing up their life together like splitting assets. The boys knew something was wrong, but didn't fully understand yet. How do you explain divorce to children so young? Justine tried to keep things normal. School routines, bedtime stories. But the boys felt the tension. Xavier especially seemed withdrawn, anxious. Is Daddy coming back? Xavier asked one night. Daddy and I are going to live in different houses, Justine explained gently. But we both love you very much. That will never change. Did we do something wrong? Xavier whispered. Justine pulled her son close. No, sweetheart. Nothing that's happening is your fault. Not even a little bit. This is about grown-up stuff. But you are perfect and loved. She repeated those words to all 5 boys in different ways over those difficult months, making sure they knew the divorce wasn't about them. Even though part of her wondered, if Elon really loved his children, how could he leave so easily? By December 2008, the divorce was almost final. Elon was publicly dating Tallulah Riley. Photos of them appeared online. Her young and beautiful in designer clothes, him looking happier than Justine had seen him in years. It hurt worse than she'd expected. Tesla was still struggling. The company came days away from bankruptcy that Christmas. Elon invested his last money to keep it alive. The stress was enormous, but he had Tallulah by his side supporting him. Justine wondered if he ever thought about how she'd supported him through Zip2, PayPal, the early years of SpaceX and Tesla. How she'd sacrificed her own dreams, her own identity to be the person behind his success. Probably not. She decided to stop wondering. Stop caring what Elon thought or felt or remembered. She needed to focus on herself and her children. In early 2009, she did something bold. She pitched an essay to Marie Claire magazine about her marriage, her divorce, and what it felt like to lose yourself in someone else's enormous ambition. The editor loved it. They wanted her to write honestly about being Elon Musk's first wife, about the reality behind the success story. Justine wrote the piece in 3 days. Everything poured out. The loneliness, the criticism, the feeling of disappearing. She wrote about Nevada, about having 5 more sons, about being told she wasn't taking care of herself while managing 5 children alone. She didn't write about the note. That stayed private. But everything else she laid bare. The article was titled, "I Was a Starter Wife." It published in September. Within hours, it went viral. Women everywhere shared it, related to it, understood it. They told their own stories of losing themselves in marriages, of being criticized by partners, of feeling erased. Elon was furious. He called her angry. "You made me look terrible," he said. "Like some villain. That's not fair. You don't understand the pressure I was under." "I lived with that pressure," Justine said calmly. "I supported you through it, and you still left me. You didn't have to write about our private life publicly. You made our private life public when you started dating Tallulah 3 weeks after asking for a divorce," Justine said. "I'm just telling my side of the story." "There are always 2 sides," Elon said. "Then tell yours," Justine replied. "But stop trying to silence mine." He hung up. Justine felt powerful for the first time in years. She'd used her voice, told her truth, refused to be silent about what happened to her. Women she'd never met sent her messages. "Thank you for writing this. I felt so alone until I read your story. You put words to what I couldn't explain. You helped me understand I wasn't crazy." This was what she'd wanted all along. to matter, to be heard, to create something that helped people. Maybe not through fantasy novels, but through truth. Her writing career started to grow. She finished her fantasy novel and got it published. She blogged honestly about co-parenting with Elon, about the challenges and small victories. She spoke at events about finding yourself after divorce. The boys adjusted. It wasn't easy, but children are resilient. They had 2 homes now, 2 parents who loved them, even if those parents couldn't love each other anymore. Elon married Tallulah Riley in 2010. Justine felt a pang when she heard, but not as sharp as she'd expected. She was building her own life now. His choices didn't define her anymore. She dated. Some relationships lasted weeks, others months. None felt quite right. Maybe she wasn't ready. Maybe she was too damaged. Or maybe she just needed to be alone for a while, figuring out who Justine really was. She dyed her hair purple again, just for fun, just to remember the brave girl she used to be. Her sons thought it was cool. Years passed. The boys grew into teenagers. Elon's company succeeded spectacularly. Tesla became the most valuable car company in the world. SpaceX landed rockets and sent astronauts to space. He became a celebrity, then a controversial figure, then the richest person on Earth. Justine watched from the outside, co-parenting their 5 sons, building her writing career, living her own life. Elon married and divorced Tallulah twice, had more children with other women. A musician named Grimes, an executive at his companies. His life played out in headlines and tweets and public controversies. Sometimes Justine felt sad about it all. The boy she'd loved at Queen's University seemed like a different person. Or maybe he'd always been this way and she just hadn't wanted to see it. In 2022, one of her children, Xavier, now 20, came to her with something important. "Mom, I need to tell you something," Xavier said, sitting at the kitchen table where so many big conversations had happened. "I'm listening," Justine said gently. "I'm transgender," Xavier said, voice shaking. "I'm a woman. I want to be called Vivian. I'm changing my name legally. And I don't want to be associated with my biological father anymore." Justine reached across the table and took her daughter's hands. "Thank you for trusting me with this. I love you. Vivian is a beautiful name. I support you completely." They hugged, both crying. Justine felt proud of her daughter's courage, scared for her too, knowing the world could be cruel, but mostly proud. When Vivian legally changed her name and gender, cutting ties with Elon publicly, it made news. Elon made public comments that hurt, misunderstanding, dismissive. Justine defended her daughter fiercely, publicly. This was what mattered. Not old marriages or past pain. Her children, their happiness, their right to be who they truly were. Justine was 50 years old now. Her boys, including Vivian, were young adults finding their own paths. Her writing career was solid, if not spectacular. She had friends, hobbies, a life she'd built entirely on her own terms. She thought she'd made peace with everything that happened. Then in September 2024, a cream-colored envelope arrived with no return address, and everything came rushing back. After opening Elon's envelope and sending her initial reply, Justine waited. 1 day passed, then 2, then a week. No response. She wondered if he'd changed his mind about wanting to understand. Maybe he'd found the note, had a moment of curiosity, then moved on to the next crisis or company or controversy. That would be very Elon. A brief flicker of self-reflection before the work consumed him again. Justine tried not to care. She had her own life to focus on. She was working on a new novel, her 4th. This one was different from her dark fantasy stories. It was about a woman rediscovering herself after divorce, finding power not through magic, but through honesty. Her most personal work yet. The boys, she still called them that, even though they were men now, were scattered across the country. Griffin was studying at a university back east. Kai, Saxon, and Damien were pursuing different paths: technology, business, creative fields, each finding their own way. Vivian had moved to Los Angeles, not far from Justine. They met for coffee once a week. Justine treasured those conversations with her daughter, watching her bloom into confidence, into herself. "Have you talked to Dad recently?" Vivian asked one afternoon in October. "No," Justine said. "Why?" "He sent me an email. Vivian said quietly, trying to apologize for his comments. It felt, I don't know, like he was reading from a script someone told him to send. Do you want a relationship with him? Justine asked carefully. Vivian stirred her coffee. I don't know. Part of me misses having a dad. But the person he is now, I don't recognize him. Do you? Justine thought about that. Sometimes I see glimpses of the boy I met at Queen's. The one who was excited about ideas, who felt like an outsider, who wanted to matter. But mostly, no. I don't recognize him either. Does that make you sad? Vivian asked. Sometimes, Justine admitted, I grieve for who he could have been if he'd learned to feel things instead of running from them. But I don't grieve for the marriage anymore. That was a long time ago. You seem happy now, Vivian observed. Justine smiled. I am. It took a long time to get here, but yes, I'm happy. That was true. The years since the divorce had been difficult but transformative. Justine had done the hard work of therapy, of rebuilding her identity, of learning that she was enough just as herself. She'd published 3 novels. None were bestsellers, but they had dedicated readers who connected with her dark, honest stories about women finding power. She had a career she was proud of. She'd dated several men over the years. Some relationships lasted months, one almost a year. They ended for different reasons: incompatibility, timing, or simply that Justine had learned she didn't need to be in a relationship to feel complete. She had close friends now. A community of writers, divorced moms, women who understood what it meant to lose yourself and fight to come back. They supported each other through hard times and celebrated victories together. Most importantly, she'd learned to be alone without being lonely, to enjoy her own company, to write and read and think without needing someone else to validate her existence. The purple-haired girl who'd felt invisible, she finally felt seen, by herself, and that was enough. In November, Justine gave a talk at a women's conference about rediscovering your identity after major life changes. She told parts of her story: losing Nevada, the difficult marriage, the divorce, finding herself again. Afterward, women lined up to talk to her. Some were crying. Many thanked her for her honesty. One woman in her 30s approached. I'm married to someone very ambitious, she said quietly. Reading your Marie Claire article years ago helped me understand I wasn't crazy for feeling invisible. But I'm still with him. I have 2 kids. I don't know if I can leave. Justine took her hands. I can't tell you what to do. Every situation is different. But I can tell you this: you deserve to be seen. You deserve to be valued. And if your partner can't do that, it's not your job to keep shrinking to make them comfortable. The woman nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. I needed to hear that. Moments like that reminded Justine why sharing her story mattered. Not for revenge or attention, but to help other women feel less alone. In December, she went on a date with a man she'd met at a bookstore. He was a teeter, kind and funny, with no interest in changing the world. They had dinner, talked about books and travel and simple pleasures. You seem like you've really figured yourself out, he said over dessert. It took 50 years. Justine laughed. But yes, I think I have. That's attractive, he said. Confidence. Knowing who you are. They dated casually for a few months. It was pleasant, but not passionate. Eventually, they both agreed they were better as friends. Justine was okay with that. She wasn't desperately searching for love anymore. If it happened, great. If not, she had a full life anyway. Her writing was going well. The new novel felt important. Honest. She worked on it every morning, losing herself in the story of a woman who'd given up everything for someone else's dream and then had to figure out what her own dreams were. It was fiction, but it was also her life transformed into something that might help other people see themselves. In January 2025, Justine's phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Justine? It's Elon. Her heart jumped. She hadn't heard his voice in months, maybe longer. Hi, she said carefully. What's going on? I've been thinking about your email, Elon said. The one from September. About the note. I want to understand. Can we talk? In person. Justine sat down. Why now? It's been 4 months. I needed time to process, Elon said. To figure out what I wanted to say. Can we meet? Please. Part of Justine wanted to say no, to keep that door closed. But another part, the part that had kept his secret for 20 years, was curious. Okay, she said finally, but somewhere neutral. Not your house or mine. There's a coffee shop in Manhattan Beach, Elon suggested. Quiet. We could talk. They agreed to meet the following Saturday at 2 in the afternoon. When Justine hung up, her hands were shaking. She hadn't expected this. Hadn't expected him to actually want to have this conversation. She called her therapist. Elon wants to meet. To talk about everything. Should I go? Do you want to? Her therapist asked. Justine thought about it. I think so. Not because I need closure. I have that already. But because I don't know. Maybe he needs it. And maybe part of me wants to see if there's any piece of the boy I loved still in there. Just protect yourself, her therapist advised. You've worked hard to get where you are. Don't let him pull you back into old patterns. I won't, Justine promised. Saturday came. Justine dressed carefully, not too formal, not too casual. She wanted to look good, but not like she was trying too hard. She did her makeup, left her hair down. It was still partly purple. She liked that. A reminder of who she'd always been underneath everything. The coffee shop was small and quiet. Elon was already there when she arrived, sitting at a corner table. He looked older, more tired than in photos, thinner. The weight of being the world's most famous billionaire showed on his face. He stood when he saw her. Thank you for coming. You said you wanted to talk, Justine said, sitting across from him. So talk. Elon ordered them coffee. Then he pulled out a folder. Inside was the photograph from their wedding and the note he'd written all those years ago. I found this in storage, he said. In a box of old papers from the house we lived in when Nevada died. I didn't remember writing it, but it's definitely my handwriting. You left it for me, Justine said quietly. 2 weeks after the funeral, in a book on my nightstand. Why didn't you ever say anything? Elon asked. Why didn't you confront me with it? Justine looked at the note. At the shaky handwriting. At the raw fear hidden in those words. Because I understood what you were saying, she said slowly. You were terrified of your own grief. You thought if you let yourself feel it, everything would fall apart. So you ran. You worked yourself to death to avoid feeling our son's death. That doesn't make it okay, Elon said. No, Justine agreed. It doesn't. You should have gone to therapy. You should have grieved with me. You should have been present. But I understood why you couldn't. So you protected me, Elon said. Even in your article, even when you were angry and hurt. You never mentioned this note. Never told people I'd admitted I couldn't handle emotions. It wasn't the world's business, Justine said. It was ours. Nevada was our son. Our loss. I wasn't going to use your most vulnerable moment against you even after everything that happened. Elon was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. I don't know if I ever properly apologized for how I handled Nevada's death, for how I treated you during our marriage, for leaving the way I did. You didn't, Justine said. You never apologized for any of it. I'm sorry, Elon said, meeting her eyes. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to face grief. I'm sorry I criticized you when you were taking care of 5 children basically alone. I'm sorry I left you for someone younger who didn't challenge me to be better. I'm sorry for all of it. Justine felt tears prick her eyes but didn't let them fall. Thank you. I needed to hear that. But Elon, I don't need your apology to be okay. I'm already okay. I found myself again. I built a life I'm proud of. I have a relationship with my children, all of them, including Vivian. Elon flinched at Vivian's name. I messed that up too. Yes, you did, Justine said firmly. She reached out to you, trusted you with her truth, and you responded with politics and ideology instead of love. That's on you to fix. I don't know how, Elon admitted. Start by listening, Justine said. Actually listening, not waiting to explain your position. Apologize without defending yourself. Tell her you love her no matter what. Be her father, not a public figure with opinions. Elon nodded slowly. Will she even talk to me? I don't know, Justine said honestly. But you won't find out unless you try. And you have to accept that she might say no. That's her right. They sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop hummed with quiet conversation around them. "Are you happy?" Elon asked suddenly. "Yes," Justine said without hesitation. "Are you?" Elon considered the question. "I don't know if I know what happy means. I'm driven, focused, accomplishing things. But happy? I'm not sure I've ever really been happy." "That's sad," Justine said gently. "Maybe," Elon said. "But it's who I am." "It doesn't have to be," Justine said. "You could choose differently. You could slow down, you could let yourself feel things. You could build real relationships instead of just business achievements." "I'm too old to change," Elon said. "You're 53," Justine said. "That's not too old. But you have to want to change. And I don't think you do." Elon didn't argue. They finished their coffee. Talked a little about the boys, about neutral topics. Then it was time to go. "Thank you for keeping my secret all these years," Elon said as they walked to the parking lot. "You didn't have to protect me. I did it for me too," Justine said. "And for Nevada. He deserved parents who could handle his memory with grace, even if we couldn't handle it together." "He would have been 22 now," Elon said quietly. "I know," Justine said. "I think about him every year, on his birthday. Every year on the day we lost him." "Me too," Elon whispered. They stood there for a moment. Two people who'd loved each other once, who'd created life together, who'd survived terrible loss together. Connected by history, but no longer connected by love. "Goodbye, Elon," Justine said. "Goodbye, Justine." She walked to her car and drove away. In her rearview mirror, she saw him standing in the parking lot looking lost. She felt sorry for him, but she didn't feel responsible for him anymore. That was growth. That was freedom. That was finally, fully finding her voice again. Life continued after that meeting in Manhattan Beach. Justine went back to her writing, her routine, her carefully built life. She thought about Elon occasionally, wondered if he'd reached out to Vivian, if their conversation had changed anything for him. But mostly, she focused on her own world. The world outside, however, wouldn't let anyone forget about Elon Musk. In 2016, Tesla started producing the Model 3. The company finally became profitable. SpaceX landed rockets on drone ships in the ocean, something people said was impossible. Elon appeared on magazine covers, talk shows, podcasts. He dated actresses and musicians. He made wild promises about the future. Justine watched from the sidelines, sometimes amused, sometimes concerned, always somewhat detached. This celebrity version of Elon felt completely disconnected from the boy she'd known at Queen's University. Her sons navigated having a famous father. It wasn't easy. People at their schools, their jobs always wanted to talk about Elon. Always had opinions. Some people thought he was a genius saving humanity. Others thought he was a dangerous egomaniac. "What's it like having Elon Musk as your dad?" strangers would ask. Her sons learned different ways to handle it. Some deflected with humor. Some gave short, polite answers. Some got angry at the intrusion. Griffin came to visit one weekend in 2017. He was 23 now, working at a tech startup. "Do you ever regret marrying Dad?" he asked over breakfast. Justine considered the question carefully. "No. If I hadn't married him, I wouldn't have you and your siblings. That alone makes everything worth it. But I wish some things had been different. I wish he'd been more emotionally available. I wish I hadn't lost myself for so many years." "Do you think he regrets it?" Griffin asked. "Honestly, I don't think Elon spends much time thinking about the past," Justine said. "He's always focused on the next thing, the next goal, the next impossible dream." "That must be exhausting," Griffin said. "I think it is," Justine agreed. "But I also think he doesn't know any other way to be." In 2018, Elon's behavior became more erratic. He called a rescue diver in Thailand a terrible name on Twitter. He smoked marijuana on a podcast. Tesla's stock dropped. People questioned his judgment, his mental state. Justine got calls from journalists asking for comment. "You were married to him for 8 years. What do you think is happening?" She always declined. "I haven't been married to him for a decade. I don't speak for him or about him to the press." But privately, she worried. Not because she still loved him romantically, That ship had sailed long ago. But because he was the father of her children, because some small part of her still remembered the lonely boy who'd been bullied and hurt and never learned healthy ways to cope with pain. The triplets, Kai, Saxon, and Damien, turned 15 in 2021, teenagers navigating a weird world where their father was constantly in the news, usually saying something controversial. Why can't he just be normal? Saxon asked one evening, frustrated after kids at school had made fun of something Elon tweeted. "Your father has never been normal," Justine said gently. "That's not necessarily bad. His unwillingness to be normal is why he's accomplished extraordinary things. But it's also why he struggles with ordinary human things like relationships and self-awareness." "Did you know he was like this when you married him?" Kai asked. "I knew he was ambitious and driven," Justine said. "I didn't know he'd become this. Nobody could have predicted this." In 2020, during the pandemic, Elon fought with California authorities about keeping Tesla factories open. He had another child with the musician Grimes, a boy with an unusual name that became a meme. Then twins with an executive at Neuralink, one of his companies. Justine counted in her head. Elon now had 10 children with 3 different women. 10 kids, and he worked over 100 hours a week. How present could he possibly be for any of them? She thought about her own 5 now young men and 1 young woman, and felt grateful she'd been there for all the important moments. The school plays, the soccer games, the late-night talks about fears and dreams. Being present mattered more than any amount of money or fame. Vivian's transition became public knowledge in 2022 when she legally changed her name and gender. She also requested to drop Musk from her name entirely, citing her relationship with her father as the reason. Elon made public comments about it that hurt. Comments about woke culture and losing his son. He didn't seem to understand or care that he hadn't lost a son. He'd simply never fully seen his daughter. Justine defended Vivian publicly for the first time in years. She posted on social media, "One of my children is transgender. She trusted me with her truth, and I support her completely. Being a parent means loving your children for who they are, not who you want them to be. That's not complicated." She got thousands of supportive messages, also some hateful ones. She ignored the hate and focused on the love, Vivian called her, crying. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you for always seeing me. Always," Justine promised. "I will always see you, sweetheart." That was the difference between her and Elon. She'd learned to see people really see them. He saw problems to solve, goals to achieve, missions to accomplish, but individual human hearts, those remained mysterious to him. In October 2022, Elon bought Twitter for $44 billion, then proceeded to fire most of the staff, change fundamental features, and make controversial decision after controversial decision. Justine watched the chaos unfold online with a mix of fascination and sadness. This was Elon unfiltered, unmanaged, fully convinced of his own rightness. No one could tell him no. No one could slow him down. She remembered the note from 20 years ago. "If I let myself feel it, I'll break. And if I break, everything I'm building will fail." He was still running, still building, still terrified to stop and feel anything real. In 2023, Elon became the first person ever worth over $300 billion. Then he lost much of it when Tesla stock dropped, then gained some back. The numbers were so enormous they stopped meaning anything. Justine thought about the struggling startup founder she'd supported in that tiny Palo Alto apartment, about how he'd promised that once they had money, once things stabilized, everything would get better. Money hadn't made anything better. It had just made everything bigger. His ambitions, his problems, his inability to connect with people on a real level. Her own life felt small by comparison, but rich in ways that mattered. She had her writing, her children, her close friends, her morning coffee and walks in the neighborhood, quiet evenings reading, conversations that went deep instead of wide. She'd published her 4th novel in 2023, the one about rediscovering yourself after loss. It didn't make any bestseller lists, but readers who found it loved it. They sent her emails and messages thanking her for putting their experiences into words. "Your book helped me leave my marriage," one woman wrote. "I realized I'd disappeared just like your character. I'm finding myself again now. Thank you." Those messages meant more to Justine than any amount of money or fame. In March 2024, Griffin got engaged to a woman he'd been dating for 2 years, a kind, intelligent woman who worked as a teacher. They were planning a small wedding for the fall. "Is it weird that I don't want Dad there?" Griffin asked. Justine one day. "It's your wedding," Justine said carefully. "You can invite whoever you want. But can I ask why?" "Because he'll make it about him," Griffin said. "He always does. Cameras, attention, weird comments. I just want one day that's about me and Sarah. About us. Not about having Elon Musk as a father." Justine understood completely. "Then don't invite him. You don't owe him access to your life just because he's your biological father. He has to earn that through actual relationship and presence." "Will you help me tell him?" Griffin asked nervously. "If you want me to," Justine said. "But you're a grown man now. You can have this conversation yourself. I believe in you." Griffin did tell Elon. Elon was apparently hurt, but accepted the decision. He sent an expensive gift instead. Very Elon money instead of presents. The wedding in October 2024 was beautiful and intimate. Just 50 people who truly cared about Griffin and Sarah. Justine cried during the vows, proud of the man her son had become, a man who knew himself, who chose a partner who saw him, who was building a life based on real connection rather than endless achievement. He'd learned from his parents' mistakes. They all had. As Justine danced with her sons at the reception, even Kai, who usually hated dancing, she felt deeply grateful. These young people had grown up watching a marriage fall apart, watching their father become increasingly famous and distant, but they'd turned out kind, thoughtful, and grounded. That was her real accomplishment. Not books or articles or public statements. Her children, helping them become good humans, despite the chaos of their childhood. "You did good, Mom," Saxon said, hugging her. "With all of us. You were always there." "I tried," Justine said, tears streaming down her face. "You didn't just try," Damien added. "You succeeded." In November 2024, Elon posted something on X, formerly Twitter, about family values and the importance of having children. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who knew him. 10 children with 3 women, barely present for any of them, giving advice about family. Justine almost responded publicly, then decided against it. What was the point? Some people would never see their own contradictions. Some people would keep running forever, convinced that the next achievement would finally fill the emptiness inside. She'd spent years being angry about that. Now she just felt sad for him, and grateful she'd escaped when she did. Grateful she'd rebuilt herself. Grateful for every moment of presence with her children that he'd missed. In December, Justine finished her 5th novel. This one was lighter, still with her signature darkness, but with more hope. About women who'd survived terrible things and found joy again. About second chances and late-blooming happiness. She sent it to her agent, who loved it. "This is your best work yet," her agent said. "You can feel the wisdom in these pages, the earned perspective." That night, Justine sat on her porch with a glass of wine, watching the sunset. She was 53 years old. Her hair was still partly purple. Her body showed the evidence of 5 pregnancies and 50 years of living. Her face had lines that hadn't been there before. She loved every bit of it. Every line told a story. Every gray hair was earned. This body had survived grief and loss and heartbreak and had come through stronger. She thought about the girl she'd been at Queen's University, so eager to matter, so desperate to be seen, so convinced that love and ambition could coexist without cost. That girl had been naive, but she'd also been brave. And she was still here, inside Justine. Still writing stories. Still refusing to be invisible. Still believing that vulnerability was strength. That honesty mattered. That being seen by yourself was more important than being seen by the world. Elon Musk was the richest man on Earth. Famous across the globe. Accomplishing things that seemed impossible. Justine Wilson Musk. She'd eventually dropped the Musk too. Had 5 people who genuinely loved her. A handful of books some people cherished, and peace in her heart. She knew who'd gotten the better deal. And that knowledge, that certainty, was the greatest freedom of all. Justine sat in her kitchen in September 2024, the cream-colored envelope open before her, and finally allowed herself to return to that moment 22 years ago. The moment when she'd found Elon's note and made a choice that would define everything that came after. It was 2 weeks after Nevada died. The house was quiet in that terrible way houses become after tragedy. Every sound too loud, every silence unbearable. Elon had already gone back to work, disappearing into PayPal for 18 hours a day. Justine wandered through rooms like a ghost, unable to sleep, unable to eat, unable to do anything but remember her baby's face. She'd been reading or trying to read a book about grief. Something someone had given her. She couldn't focus on the words, but holding the book made her feel less alone. That's when she noticed something tucked between the pages. A folded piece of paper. She opened it with shaking hands. Elon's handwriting. Messy, rushed, like he'd written it quickly before he could change his mind. I can't do this. I can't feel this. If I let myself feel it, I'll break, and if I break, everything I'm building will fail. I'm sorry I'm not who you need me to be. But I can't stop. Ever. Please don't hate me. Justine read it 3 times. Then she sat on the floor of their bedroom and cried until she had no tears left. Part of her wanted to storm into his office, throw the note at him, scream that he was abandoning her when she needed him most. Part of her wanted to show it to their therapist, to their friends, to prove that she wasn't crazy for feeling so alone. But another part, a deeper, quieter part, understood something important. This note was Elon at his most vulnerable, his most honest. He wasn't being cruel or dismissive. He was terrified. Absolutely terrified that if he let himself grieve properly, he would shatter into pieces that couldn't be put back together. So he was choosing survival the only way he knew how. By building, by working, by solving problems he could control instead of feeling emotions he couldn't. It wasn't right. It wasn't healthy. It was going to destroy their marriage eventually. But it was human. Justine made a decision in that moment. She folded the note carefully and put it in a small box in the back of her closet. She never mentioned it to Elon, never brought it up in arguments, never used it as ammunition when things got bad. Why? Because Nevada was their son, their loss, their private pain. And Elon's confession of fear and weakness belongs to that sacred, terrible space. It wasn't fodder for fights or proof of wrongdoing. It was just the truth of a broken man trying not to break further. Over the years that followed, Justine thought about the note often. When Elon criticized her for not taking care of herself while she managed 5 children alone. When he asked for a divorce, and she discovered he'd been seeing someone else. When he married Tallulah just months later, looking happier than he'd been with Justine in years. She could have used the note then. Could have shown it to lawyers, to journalists, to anyone who asked why the marriage failed. Look, she could have said, he admitted he couldn't handle emotions. He chose his companies over our family from the very beginning. But she never did. Even when she wrote the Marie Claire article in 2010, the one that went viral, made her voice heard, that finally told her side of the story, she didn't mention the note. She wrote about feeling erased, about being criticized and ignored, about losing herself in someone else's ambition. All of that was true and necessary to share. But Elon's private admission of fear? That stayed private. Because some truths weren't about revenge or vindication. Some truths were about preserving dignity in the face of terrible loss, about protecting the memory of a child who deserved parents capable of grace, even if they couldn't stay together. Now, 22 years later, Elon had found the note again, and he wanted to understand why she'd never said anything. Justine looked at the new envelope, the new note, the photograph from their wedding. He'd written, "I don't remember writing it, but it's my handwriting. Did I give this to you? You never said anything. Why? After everything, why did you protect me?" She'd already sent her initial response, agreeing to tell him the whole story. They'd met for coffee in January. She'd explained her reasoning briefly, but sitting here now with all the memories flooding back, Justine realized she needed to tell him and herself the complete truth, not just about why she kept the note secret, but about what it meant for her own journey, her own healing. Justine opened her laptop and began to write.
Not an email this time, a letter, a real complete explanation.
Elon, after our conversation in January, I've been thinking more about that note from 2002, about why I kept it hidden all these years. You deserve a fuller answer. When I found your note 2 weeks after Nevada died, I was drowning in grief. You were absent, physically present, but emotionally gone. I felt abandoned in the worst moment of my life. I was angry. So angry. That note could have been ammunition. Proof that you'd chosen work over our family. Proof that you were capable of real emotional connection. I could have used it in our divorce. In my article. In countless conversations over the years. But I didn't. Here's why. First, Nevada. Our son deserved better than parents who weaponized their grief against each other. His short life and tragic death were sacred. I wasn't going to turn that into a public spectacle or a tool for winning arguments. Second, I understood what you were saying in that note even though I couldn't accept it at the time. You were terrified. You'd built your entire identity around achievement and forward momentum. Grief required you to stop, to feel, to be vulnerable. That felt like death to you. So you ran. It wasn't right. It hurt me deeply. It damaged our marriage irreparably. But it was human. And I couldn't hate you for being human even when your humanity looked so different from mine. Third, and this is the hardest part to admit, keeping your secret was also about keeping mine. My secret was that some part of me still loved you. Even after everything. Even after the criticism and the neglect and the divorce. Some part of me remembered the boy at Queens who talked about Mars and understood what it felt like to be an outsider. If I'd exposed your note, used it against you, I would have had to fully let go of that memory. I would have had to see you as simply a villain in my story. That would have been easier in some ways. Clean, fine, but the truth was messier. You were the person I loved most in the world, and the person who hurt me most in the world, sometimes simultaneously. You were the father of my children, including the child we lost. You were my first real love and my greatest heartbreak. Keeping your secret meant acknowledging that complicated reality. It meant refusing to flatten you into a one-dimensional cartoon. It meant holding space for nuance and contradiction. Over the years, that choice helped me heal in unexpected ways. Every time I could have used the note to hurt you and chose not to, I was choosing my own peace, my own integrity, my own commitment to rising above the pain rather than wallowing in it. I'm not saying I'm a saint. I said plenty of honest, difficult things about our marriage. Things that probably hurt you, but I drew a line. Nevada's death and your raw confession in the aftermath, that line I wouldn't cross. You asked in January if I'm happy now. I am. Genuinely, deeply happy. Not because everything in my life is perfect, but because I know who I am. I found myself again after years of being lost. Part of that journey was learning that forgiveness doesn't always look like reconciliation. Sometimes it looks like understanding. Sometimes it looks like choosing grace, even when the other person doesn't deserve it. I forgave you years ago, Elon. Not because you apologized. You didn't. Until January. Not because you changed. You didn't. But because holding on to anger was hurting me more than it was hurting you. Because I wanted to be free. Keeping your secret was part of that freedom. It meant I was in control of my own story, my own choices, my own moral compass. It meant I could look at myself in the mirror and know I'd behaved with integrity, even when our marriage was falling apart. So why did I keep your secret? Because I was protecting Nevada's memory. Because I understood your fear. Because I still loved you in a complicated way. Because I was protecting my own peace. Because grace mattered more than revenge. All of those things. All at once. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to do anything with this information. I'm telling you now because you asked. Because 22 years later, maybe we're both old enough and wise enough to look at that terrible time with honesty and compassion. I hope you found some peace with Nevada's death. I hope you think about him sometimes with love, instead of pain. I hope you've learned, however slowly, that feeling things won't actually destroy you. That vulnerability is strength, not weakness. But even if you haven't learned those things, I'm okay. I don't need you to change or grow or become different. That's not my responsibility anymore. I just needed you to know the truth. The whole truth. About why a note you wrote in desperation 2 decades ago stayed hidden, protected, kept safe. Because love, real love, The kind that survives even after romance dies, means seeing someone fully, their brilliance and their brokenness, their courage and their fear, and choosing to honor their humanity anyway. That's what I did for you, not because you deserved it, but because it's who I chose. I hope you can do the same for our children. All of them. Especially Vivian. See her fully. Honor her humanity. Choose grace over ideology. They're your legacy too. The one that will matter long after the rockets and cars and companies are forgotten. Be well, Elon. Thank you for asking the question that let me finally tell this story completely. With honest affection and genuine distance, Justin. She read the letter 3 times, making small edits. Then she saved it as a document but didn't send it as an email. This letter was for her, a way of processing, a way of understanding her own journey. Maybe she'd send it eventually. Maybe she wouldn't. That almost didn't matter. What mattered was that she'd finally articulated the full truth. Not just for Elon, but for herself. She'd kept his secret because of love, because of grace, because of Nevada, because of her own need for integrity and peace. And in keeping that secret, she'd freed herself from the prison of bitterness. She'd chosen her own healing over his punishment. She'd protected something sacred in a relationship that had become anything but. That was power. Real power. Not the power to destroy someone with their own words, but the power to rise above that temptation. Justin closed her laptop and looked at the photograph one more time. 2 young people in Scotland, believing love could conquer anything. They'd been wrong about that. Love hadn't conquered Elon's fear or ambition. Love hadn't saved their marriage or brought their baby back. But love, transformed into something quieter, wiser, more forgiving, had saved Justine, had helped her become someone she was proud to be. And that was enough, more than enough. It was everything. Justine stared at her laptop screen for a long time after finishing the letter. Should she send it? Did Elon need to read all of this? Did she need him to? The answer, she realized, was no. She didn't need him to understand. The letter had done its work simply by being written. It had helped her see the full arc of her own story, from the purple-haired girl at Queens to the woman sitting here now, confident and whole. But maybe sending it would help him. Maybe after 53 years of running from emotions, Elon needed someone to explain what grace actually looked like. And maybe, just maybe, it would help their children. If Elon could understand why she'd protected him, maybe he could learn to protect others. To see Vivian with real eyes instead of ideology. To be present for Griffin, Kai, Saxon, and Damien in ways he'd never managed before. For that possibility alone, it was worth sending. Justine copied the letter into an email. Her finger hovered over the send button. She thought about Nevada one more time. Her baby who'd lived only 10 weeks, who'd never know his father had built rockets that went to space, or that his mother had found her voice, or that he had 5 siblings who would have loved him. "This is for you too, sweet boy," she whispered. "For the family we could have been." She pressed send. The email disappeared into the digital void. Justine closed her laptop and went outside to her porch. The September evening was warm and quiet. She sat in her favorite chair and let herself feel everything. The grief that never fully left, the pride in her children, the satisfaction of a life rebuilt, the peace that came from finally telling the complete truth. She didn't expect a response from Elon. He wasn't good at these kinds of conversations. He'd probably read it, process it in his analytical way, and move on to the next crisis or company or controversy. That was okay. She'd said what needed saying. The rest was up to him. 3 days later, her phone buzzed with a notification. An email from Elon. Justine's heart rate increased. She almost didn't want to open it. What if he was defensive? What if he dismissed everything she'd written? What if he made it about himself again? She took a breath and opened the email. "Justine, I've read your letter 5 times. I don't know how to respond to most of it. You're right that I'm not good at these conversations. I'm not good at feelings in general. But I want you to know I read every word. And I heard what you were saying. I've been thinking a lot about Nevada lately. More than I have in years. Maybe because I'm older now. Maybe because I have other children and I can see what I missed with him by not letting myself grieve properly. Maybe because your letter made me finally look at something I've been running from for 2 decades. You're right that I was terrified. I still am, honestly. Terrified that if I stop moving, stop building, stop achieving, I'll have to face all the things I've avoided feeling. The loss of Nevada. The failure of our marriage. The distance from my children. All of it. It's easier to work, to plan missions to Mars, to solve technical problems that have clear solutions. Emotions don't have clear solutions. They're messy and complicated and unpredictable. I never thanked you properly for how you handled Nevada's death, for being strong enough to grieve openly, for keeping me together even though I wasn't keeping you together, for protecting me all these years. I also never thanked you for raising our children essentially alone while I chased my dreams. Griffin, Xavier, Vivian, Kai, Saxon, Damien, they're good humans. They're kind and thoughtful and grounded. That's because of you, not me. About Vivian, you were right about that too. I handled it terribly. I let politics and my own stubbornness get in the way of seeing my daughter, of loving her unconditionally, the way a father should. I reached out to her last week. After our coffee meeting in January, and again after reading your letter, I apologized. Really apologized. Not the scripted version. I told her I love her no matter what. That I'm sorry for not seeing her sooner. She responded. We're talking, carefully. It might take years to rebuild what I broke, but we're talking. I don't know if I can change the way you want me to. I don't know if I can slow down or feel things more deeply or stop being who I am at my core. This is how I'm wired. Maybe it's trauma from childhood. Maybe it's just how my brain works. Probably both. But I want you to know that your letter mattered. Your choice to keep my secret all these years mattered. Not just to me, but to our children. They have a mother who showed them what integrity looks like, what grace looks like, what rising above pain looks like. You asked in your letter if I think about Nevada. I do. Every year on his birthday, May 18th. Every year on the day we lost him. I never told anyone that because it felt private. Because grief still scares me. But I want you to know I haven't forgotten him. I never will. He was our first child. Our firstborn. 10 perfect weeks that ended too soon. Sometimes I wonder what he would have been like. Would he have been interested in engineering like me? Would he have been creative like you? Would he have been the bridge between our two worlds that we could never quite build ourselves? I'll never know. That's the hardest part. All the questions that will never have answers. I'm not good at endings or closures or tidy emotional resolutions. So I'll just say this. Thank you for loving me when I was young and lost. Thank you for keeping my secret when you didn't have to. Thank you for raising our children to be better humans than I've been. Thank you for finally telling me the whole truth. And I'm sorry. For all of it. For the ways I failed you as a husband and failed our children as a father. For choosing achievement over presence. For running instead of staying. For hurting you when I promised to love you. I hope you really are happy. I hope your writing continues to help people the way your Marie Claire article helped so many women. I hope you keep your purple hair and your fierce independence in your beautiful heart. You deserved better than what I gave you, but you made something beautiful anyway. 5 incredible humans and a life lived with integrity. That's more than I can say for myself. With respect and lingering love, E. Justine read the email twice, tears streaming down her face. This was the most honest Elon had ever been with her. Maybe the most honest he'd been with anyone. He'd admitted fear, failure, regret. He'd acknowledged his children. He'd said her daughter's name, Vivian, and admitted he was trying to rebuild that relationship. It wasn't everything. It wouldn't change the past or heal all the wounds. But it was something. It was real. She wrote back immediately, keeping it short. Thank you for this. Thank you for reaching out to Vivian. Thank you for remembering Nevada. Keep trying, Elon. Keep being honest. That's all any of us can do. She sent it and felt something shift inside her chest. A final piece of letting go. Not letting go of the memories or the children they shared, but letting go of any remaining anger or bitterness or wish that things had been different. They were what they were. He was who he was. She was who she was. And somehow, despite everything, they both survived. Differently. Separately. But survived nonetheless. Justine stood up and walked to the box in her closet where she'd kept Elon's original note for 22 years. She pulled it out and read it one final time. I can't do this. I can't feel this. If I let myself feel it, I'll break. And if I break, everything I'm building will fail. I'm sorry I'm not who you need me to be. But I can't stop. Ever. Please don't hate me. She didn't hate him. She never had. Not really. She'd been angry and hurt and disappointed. But hate? No. Because hate required believing someone should be different than they were. And Justine had finally accepted that Elon was exactly who he was meant to be. Brilliant and broken, ambitious and afraid, capable of changing the world but not of changing himself. That was his journey. His lesson to learn or not learn. Hers was different. Hers was about finding herself after losing herself. About building a life that mattered not because it was famous or wealthy or world-changing, but because it was honest and kind and true. She'd done that. Against all odds. She'd done that. Justine took the note and the photograph from their wedding and placed them in a memory box with other precious items. Nevada's hospital bracelet. First photos of the twins and triplets. Cards her children had made for her over the years. Rejection letters from publishers alongside acceptance letters. Reviews of her books. Messages from readers whose lives she'd touched. These were her treasures. Her real legacy. Not measured in dollars or headlines or rockets to Mars, but in moments of connection and courage and grace. She closed the box and put it back in her closet. Then she sat down at her desk and opened a fresh document. A new story was forming in her mind. Not about her own life this time, but about a different kind of woman. One who'd never lost herself because she'd never given herself away in the first place. A woman who loved fiercely but never at the expense of her own soul. The words flowed easily, joyfully. This was what she was meant to do. Tell stories. Create worlds. Help people see themselves and their possibilities. Outside her window, the sun was setting over Los Angeles. Somewhere in the same city, Vivian is living her truth. Somewhere else, Griffin was building a life with Sarah. The triplets were finding their own paths. Elon was probably in a meeting or on a factory floor or planning his next impossible achievement. And Justine was here, writing. Purple hair fading to gray at the roots. Lines on her face from 50 years of living fully. Hands that had held babies and typed thousands of pages and learned to hold herself. She thought about the girl she'd been at 15, dyeing her hair purple in Peterborough, Ontario. That girl who wanted desperately to matter, who wanted to be seen, who wanted to be remembered. She'd gotten her wish. Not in the way she'd imagined, not as a famous novelist with bestsellers and movie deals, but in ways that mattered more. She mattered to her 5 children, who called her regularly and trusted her with their joys and fears. She mattered to readers who found themselves in her stories and felt less alone. She mattered to women who read her Marie Claire article and realized they weren't crazy for feeling erased. She mattered to herself. And that ultimately was the most important thing. Justine Wilson had been Jennifer Wilson, the invisible girl. Then Justine Musk, the startup wife. Then Justine Musk, the divorced mother of 5. Then finally, simply Justine Ryder, mother survivor, woman who'd learned that the only approval she needed was her own. The journey from invisible to seen had taken 50 years, had cost her a marriage, a child, countless tears, and the slow, painful work of rebuilding an identity from fragments. But she'd made it. She was here. She was whole. And she'd done it by choosing grace over revenge. Understanding over anger. Her own peace over his punishment. That was the secret she'd kept. Not just Elon's note, but her own truth. That forgiveness was possible even when the person didn't deserve it. That you could honor someone's humanity while still protecting your own. That love could transform into something quieter and wiser without disappearing entirely. She'd kept the secret because it kept her free. And now, finally, the secret was told. The whole story, laid bare. Not for the world necessarily, but for herself, and for Elon and for their children who deserve to understand that their parents were human, flawed and failing and trying anyway. Justine smiled and kept writing. The story poured out of her, full of hope and hard-won wisdom. Outside, the stars began to appear. The same stars Elon was trying to reach with his rockets. The same stars that had witnessed her evolution from girl to woman, from lost to found, from broken to whole. She was ready now, ready for whatever came next. Ready to keep writing, keep living, keep choosing grace. The purple-haired girl had finally, fully become exactly who she was meant to be. And that was the greatest achievement of all. That was the end of Justine's journey. From invisible girl to woman who found her voice again. We'd love to know, where are you listening from? Drop your location in the comments below. If this touched your heart, please hit the like button. It really helps us reach more people who need to hear messages like this. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more emotionally powerful true accounts that inspire, heal, and help us understand the human experience better. Finally, share this video with your friends and family. Spread kindness and awareness. You never know whose life might be changed by hearing about resilience, forgiveness, and finding yourself again. Thank you for being here. Until next time, remember, your voice matters, and you are enough exactly as you are.